Star Citizen performance, is it heading in the right direction as we start 2026? Our first patch of the year, 4.6, as I'll show you, it's not necessarily a great sign. Last year, at the end of the year, Chris Roberts gave us his letter from the chairman, and he said that 2025 became the year of playability. That's what they talked about. That was their aim. And they talked about the idea of improving quality of life, improving performance, and reliability. And we've talked about this lots of times on the channel. I'm not sure that performance really made much of a step forward. Let me just stop messing around and get straight into this graph. This shows the performance for every patch since 4.0 in Lorville, tested at 1080p with DirectX 11. And you can see, if you've seen this before, that things jump up and down. We started off at 68 FPS and it's bounced around through the year, got up to the peak of 87 FPS for the average when you were running around Lorville. But then towards the end of kind of last year, 4.5 and now 4.6, we are down into the 50s. And so this is a problem in some ways. CIG, again, said last year was a year of looking at performance, but I think overall things didn't really go anywhere. And looking at the start of this year, it's even worse. We're heading in the wrong direction. Now, you might say, well, there's an event going on and the free flight and everything. I tested this just as the patch came out. So the event was going on, the servers would have been busy, all sorts of stuff going on. But I tested this load of data this morning, and you can see that what I've got here is, again, data from Lorville, and I've recorded the entity count. And so one of the things that we often talk about when we're looking at all this stuff is the entity count that the game shows us does seem to have an impact on FPS. And so you can see here that it kind of shows in this data. 82,000 entities at the top was the lowest amount I did in this test this morning. I literally just tested 8 servers this morning, and that was the best result. And the bottom, the servers which had 130,000 entities, well, they were looking not so good. It does bounce around a bit in the middle, but generally it follows the pattern. And so what I would suggest is that the entity count is going up again, as it often does. And the way this normally works is that it goes up, and then CIG do some work to kind of optimize some stuff and get control of it. The entity count goes down again, performance seems to recover a bit, and then it gets slowly built up again, and we just go through this pattern where performance is just going up and down. I would suggest that with 4.7, I'd be hoping for CIG to be looking at least at Lorville here, and looking at performance, because it's just not great at all. These runs that I did actually basically average out to the exact same number we saw in that first graph, about 54 FPS. And so again, that was 2 snapshots. This wasn't that much data, but 2 snapshots taken a few weeks apart, getting basically the same results, showing that this first patch of the year, at least in Lorville, which is obviously not the whole game, but it's where I do a lot of testing, Lorville performance is not good at the moment. Also, the other part of this is that this is testing on a really high-end machine. So this is a 9800 XUD with a 5080, 30 gigabytes of RAM. And the story isn't great either when you go to the more kind of low-end system. So my minimum spec, what I kind of recommend, is the i5 10400 or maybe the Ryzen 3600. And then it's got a 1660, GTX 1660 in there, which, because of the VRAM problems, isn't great on Vulkan, but it's still okay-ish on DX11. And you can see here, as I'm running around Lorville here, we're still definitely under 30 FPS for most of this run. It does bump up above at points, but overall, again, on the low end, things haven't moved. They just, one of the hopes for last year with pushing for performance was that the low end, the systems in the low end would see significant improvements. And I know some people will say, oh, my system's doing okay. In all the testing I've done with this system, this low end kind of my minimum spec, just nothing's changed really. Like the performance you get in Lorville itself is pretty much the same as it was probably at the end of 2024. And so it's a strange place we're in. Again, I feel like a broken record talking about this, but we're obviously waiting for Squadron. They have also mentioned that there's some performance optimizations that they're doing on Squadron that will, again, make its way across to Star Citizen at some point. When that happens, I don't know. But I guess what I'm saying here, or maybe what I'm asking for and maybe this isn't, again, the right time. CIG might say, even though last year they said, oh, we're looking at performance, this isn't really the right time to look at performance because we're still adding loads of stuff to the game. And so what's the point? That's not really how game development traditionally works. You don't tend to do major optimization until things are kind of locked down. And Star Citizen is very far away from being locked down in terms of features and all sorts of stuff. So maybe this isn't the time, but man, it's a little bit depressing to look at that first graph and think things have actually got worse over the last year. Like, at least now at this point, starting 2026, performance is looking down. And again, there's an event running that will have an impact. But yeah, I would hopefully, now that there's half the patches basically that we had last year, the patch every other month. Hopefully, some of that extra time that I get to work on each patch will go into performance, because I think it needs it. And again, on the low end, things are even worse. So there you go. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, because again, I'm just one person testing on one system in one place. I'd love to hear what you are experiencing. Are you seeing better performance, worse performance? Do you just not really care? Yeah, let me know.